May God's peace, mercy and blessings be upon you. My name is Muhammad. New video and new story. But before starting, do not forget to pray for the Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. Let's begin. Our first story was told by a girl who lives in the Emirates. The author of the story says, I have been working in a hospital for several years and I will tell you some of the situations that happened to me. For your information, everything I say is true and actually happened. She says that the hospital in which I used to work is said by everyone to be haunted because it was built for 40 years on land that was basically a cemetery, but I did not believe them. She says one day when I was on the night shift and I was working in department after maternity department, that is, she was taking the children after their mother gave birth to them and taking care of them. She says that the night was calm and everything was normal. All the lights in the hospital were off except for the nurse's office and some of the corridors. There were small yellow bulbs in the corridors to give a calm atmosphere. At 2 o'clock in the morning, a policewoman came to me. She was accompanying one of the prisoners who was giving birth in the hospital. She was very frightened and terrified, and her face was yellow, as if she had seen a ghost or something scary. I asked her, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" She replied to me, saying, "I want to ask you just one thing. Is there anything wrong with this? The section we are in contains children between 3 and 4 years old." I explained to her and told her that in this section there are only infants and their mothers, and there are no children aged 4 or 3 years. She told me that she saw 2 children between 3 and 4 years old who were walking and holding each other's hands in the opposite direction to me. They kept walking until they entered the room. I was surprised by what she said, because that room that she told me about is only open 2 days a week and in the morning and not at night, meaning that the room at this time is locked. She was certain that what that policewoman saw was a jinn disguised as children. As for the second situation that happened to her in the hospital, there were 2 rooms in which strange things always happened. One of these things was that the nurse's bell was ringing on its own, meaning that the bell had a button that had to be pressed in order for it to work, but it was working on its own and without anyone pressing it. On Sunday, when we went to check what had happened, we would see that the beds and chairs had moved from their places, so we would adjust them and go. Then we would come back after a short time and find that the bed or chair had moved again. As for the third situation, she says that it happened with my friend and my friend never lies, and I am sure that her words are true. She told me that one day during one of the night shifts several years ago, she said that she and her female employee friends were sitting in one of the rooms and suddenly they froze in their chairs, and she says, "I swear by God, we froze and could not move from our chairs at all, and suddenly a very tall person passed in front of us. We could not raise our heads to see his appearance." She says that they only saw his waist and his feet, and he walked comfortably in front of the office until he moved away a little. We were able to move as if something was holding us. Then he left us. She said that this thing happened to tell of us, me and my friends. The second story, it is narrated by a girl who says that it happened to her husband. The girl says that she did not believe the talk about jinn and that they enter human lives, and she always says that they are just false stories until she saw it with her own eyes. The girl says our story happened a year ago. She says it was my husband's habit to shave his beard at night. He sits in front of our mirror for a long time, and I always ask him, why do you shave your beard at night? There are many times better than the night, such as the morning, the evening, or many others. He responds to me and says, I only have time at night, and it remained in that state until something happened that I did not expect. The author of the story says that my husband began to move away from me and no longer cared for me at all, to the point that he started sleeping in the children's room. She said that our children's room is close to our room, with only the door between us and them. She says that when I asked him, he used to excuse the children and say, I told me that children are afraid of sleeping alone, and I continued to sleep alone for a month. I was feeling anxious and strange because there was no problem between me and my husband, and after several months I started to wake up and I was afraid and terrified because I started hearing voices screaming in my ears. Sometimes I heard a woman's voice and sometimes a children's voice. So I went to my children's room and was shocked when I saw them sleeping and none of them moved. His place was so much that I started to be afraid when the night came. When I used to go and tell my husband what was happening to me, he would say to me, you are delusional. I even convinced myself that I was delusional. Glory be to God. Since I started reading the Quran, the Mu'awwidhatan and the Dhikr, the voices began to disappear, and one day I was going into the bathroom. It was almost 12 o'clock at night. Suddenly I heard a sound knocking on the wall, the sound of something knocking. So I thought it was our cleaning lady at home working or doing something, and that's why the sound came out. And she said after that, my relationship with my husband was destroyed and all of this changed the habit of sounds again, and I was psychologically tired. So I decided to be honest with my husband about what was happening to me. So I told him, there is something strange happening to me, and my husband said to me again, you are delusional. So I said to myself, surely there's another girl in my husband's life, because everything that's happening is not normal at all. My relationship with him was destroyed and he sleeps alone. I told him what was happening to me. He said, you are delusional. So I said, there's definitely another girl in his life. She says, a week after I spoke to my husband, I was sitting with my children in the garden of the house while they were playing, and when they finished playing, I heard the sound of a woman screaming coming from inside the house. I was surprised and said, who is screaming in the house while I and the children are outside? So who is screaming inside? And I remember standing up. I was unable to move and my entire body was shaking, especially since we were in an isolated area where there were only a few neighbors and their voices never rose. So I sat in my place reading Al-Fatiha until I calmed down and entered the house. When I entered the house, I smelled that smell of something burning. Glory to be God. From this incident, I came back. My life with my husband's like the first, no better yet, as if nothing had happened. I even said to my husband, glory to be God. He guides whom he wills. And she said, he laughed. And after a month we were going out, going on a trip. We were visiting people. And my husband said to me while we were on the way, I have a secret that I would like to tell you about. He said to me, because this is the best time to tell you that secret. So I told him, and he said to me, do you remember the events that happened with us a while ago? So I said to him, yes, I remember when I was coming to tell you and you told me that you were delusional. He said, You are delusional, Lee. You were not delusional. Even I thought you were delusional until a situation happened to me, specifically when I was sleeping in the children's room. It made me realize that everything you saying was true. I would always wake up from sleep and see as if there was a black shadow sleeping next to me. This topic was repeated more than once, so I said to myself that I must go to one of the sheikhs and tell him what was happening to me and to you. The shock was when I told the sheikh about what had happened to us. He told me that there was a fairy who married me and that she adored me and loved me. Her name was Maryam and her religion was Christian. He told me to give me a few days too. He took it out of you. And the sheikh said to him, this fairy loved you because you stood for a long time in front of the mirror. He advised him not to shave his beard again at night in front of the mirror. And my husband said to me, do you remember the woman screaming that you heard when you and the children were in the garden of the house? I told him, yes, I remember it well. Then he said to me, this jinn of the sheikh's servants were coming to frighten the fairy Maryam so that she would leave our house. And the smoke and the smell of the fire that I smelled is the smoke of the fire that they were afraid of. On that day, she actually left our house and came out screaming and saying, I am in the 6th month of pregnancy. The wife said while he was telling me the story, my whole body was shaking. I was very afraid. He said to me, I told you until I was sure that she had left our house. Thank God, she has left now. And the sheikh told me, the loving jinn is the next type of jinn and it is easy to remove it from human life. We have reached the end of our stories. Do not forget to pray for the Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. Subscribe to the channel, like the video and share your opinions in the comments. Peace, mercy and blessings of God be upon you.